The waiting bride. The afternoon sun cast golden rays through the tall glass windows of the garden pavilion, illuminating the white roses that decorated every corner of the venue. Sophia Chen stood at the entrance of the ceremony hall, her fingers gripping the delicate lace of her wedding dress as she checked her phone for what felt like the 100th time. The screen remained blank. No calls, no messages. Nothing from Marcus. Behind her, the murmur of confused guests grew louder with each passing minute. Sophia could feel their eyes on her back, could hear the whispered questions that people weren't even trying to hide anymore. Where is the groom? Did something happen? Is the wedding canceled? The questions swirled around her like autumn leaves, each one cutting deeper than the last. Sophia's best friend and maid of honor, Rachel Martinez, approached with careful steps, her emerald green dress rustling softly. Her face wore the kind of expression that people use when they're trying to deliver bad news gently. Sophia knew that look well. She had seen it on doctors' faces, on teachers' faces, on the faces of people who were about to tell you something that would change your life. Sophia. Honey, Rachel began, her voice barely above a whisper. It's been 45 minutes. Maybe we should make an announcement or reschedule or something. The guests are getting restless, and the venue coordinator keeps asking what we want to do about dinner service. Sophia shook her head, her carefully styled dark hair still perfect despite the emotional turmoil brewing inside her. He's coming, Rachel. Marcus wouldn't do this to me. Something must have happened. Something must be wrong. Even as she spoke the words, doubt crept into her heart like frost spreading across a window. What if she was wrong? What if Marcus had simply changed his mind? The memories of their relationship flooded back to her in vivid detail. She remembered the first time they met at a charity art auction 18 months ago. Marcus had been standing in front of a modern sculpture, studying it with the kind of intense focus that Sophia found instantly attractive. He wasn't just looking at art. He was experiencing it, understanding it, letting it speak to him. When she approached to explain the piece, he had turned to her with eyes that seemed to see straight through to her soul. Their first date had lasted 8 hours. They talked about everything from architecture to philosophy, from childhood dreams to future plans. Marcus had told her about his vision of designing buildings that felt like home, spaces that made people feel safe and connected. Sophia had shared her passion for bringing art to communities that couldn't normally access it, for making beauty available to everyone regardless of their economic status. Over the following months, their love had grown in the quiet, steady way that lasting relationships do. There were no dramatic declarations or grand gestures, just a deepening understanding and appreciation for each other. Marcus would leave little notes in her lunch bag when he knew she had difficult days ahead. Sophia would sketch architectural designs for his projects, adding artistic elements that made his work more beautiful. They fit together like two pieces of a puzzle that had been searching for each other. 6 months ago, Marcus had proposed during a private viewing at the gallery where Sophia worked. He had arranged with her boss to set up a special exhibition featuring just one piece, a painting of 2 trees with their roots intertwined beneath the surface, invisible to casual observers but forming the foundation of their strength. When Sophia arrived and saw it, Marcus was already there, on one knee, holding a ring that had belonged to his grandmother. Our roots are already intertwined, he had said, his voice thick with emotion. I want to make it official. I want everyone to see what I've known for months, that we're stronger together than we could ever be apart. Sophia Chen, will you marry me? She had said yes through tears of joy, and they had danced alone in the empty gallery, planning a future that seemed certain and bright and full of possibility. But now, standing in her wedding dress with no groom in sight, that future felt like it was crumbling beneath her feet. Sophia's mother approached next, her face a mixture of concern and barely concealed anger. Mrs. Chen had never been Marcus's biggest fan, always suggesting that Sophia could do better, that Marcus wasn't ambitious enough or wealthy enough or connected enough. Sophia, this is ridiculous, her mother said, not bothering to lower her voice. He's clearly not coming. We need to tell the guests and send them home. This is embarrassing for our family. What will people think? I don't care what people think, Mom, Sophia replied, her voice stronger than she felt. I care about Marcus. Something is wrong. I can feel it. The venue coordinator, a efficient woman named Patricia, appeared with a clipboard and an expression of professional sympathy.
Miss Chen, I'm so sorry to intrude, but we really need to make a decision.
The caterers are holding dinner service, the musicians are asking about timing, and some guests are starting to leave. What would you like us to do? Before Sophia could answer, a commotion erupted at the main entrance of the pavilion. The heavy wooden doors burst open with a bang that echoed through the high-ceilinged space, and a small figure came running through. It was a boy, perhaps 7 years old, with messy brown hair and a grass-stained shirt. He was breathing hard, his face flushed with exertion, and in his hands he clutched a smartphone like it was the most precious treasure in the world. The boy's eyes scanned the crowd frantically until they landed on Sophia in her unmistakable white dress. His face lit up with relief, and he started running toward her, weaving between confused guests and knocking over a small table of programs in his haste. "Are you Sophia?" The boy gasped as he reached her, nearly tripping over his untied shoelaces. "Are you the bride? The one marrying Marcus?" Sophia knelt down, her dress pooling around her like a cloud, and took the boy's shoulders gently.
"Yes, I'm Sophia."
"Who are you? What's happening?" The boy thrust the phone toward her with urgent hands.
"My name is Tommy Wilson.
I live on Oakwood Street. Marcus, he had an accident. His car crashed 3 blocks from here. He couldn't move, but he could talk, and he kept saying your name over and over. He gave me his phone and told me to run here as fast as I could. He made me promise to find you and tell you he's coming, that he would never miss this, that you have to wait for him." The world seemed to stop spinning for a moment as Sophia processed Tommy's words. An accident. Marcus was hurt. But he was trying to reach her, trying to get to their wedding even though he was injured. Her hands shook as she took the phone from Tommy, and she could see that the screen was cracked, probably from the impact of the crash. "Where is he now?" Sophia asked, her voice barely functioning.
"Is he okay?
"Did someone call an ambulance?"
Tommy nodded vigorously.
"Yes, the ambulance came right after I left. But he made me run here first. He said it was more important that you knew he didn't abandon you than anything else. He said you would think he didn't want to marry you, and that would be worse than any injury." Tears began to stream down Sophia's face, ruining her carefully applied makeup, but she didn't care. Marcus hadn't left her. He was fighting to get to her even now. The phone in her hands suddenly vibrated, and she looked down to see a text message appearing on the cracked screen. It was from a number she didn't recognize, but the message was clear. "This is Paramedic Jenkins. Marcus insisted I text you. He has a broken leg and some bruises, but he's stable. He's demanding we take him to your wedding instead of the hospital. We're trying to convince him otherwise, but he's very determined. He wanted you to know he loves you, and he'll be there soon. Hospital gown and all if necessary." The truth revealed. Sophia looked up from the phone, her eyes meeting Rachel's, then her mother's, then finally settling on young Tommy, who was watching her with the kind of hopeful expression that only children can truly master. The entire wedding venue had gone silent. Even the musicians had stopped their quiet practicing, and every guest was straining to hear what was happening at the front of the room. "Marcus was in a car accident," Sophia announced, her voice carrying clearly through the space. "He's hurt, but he's alive, and he's trying to get here. He sent Tommy to tell me he's coming." A collective gasp rippled through the crowd, followed immediately by murmurs of concern and relief. Mrs. Chen's angry expression melted into worry, and even she had to admit that this changed everything. Rachel immediately pulled out her phone, likely to start coordinating with the hospital and emergency services. But Sophia was already moving. She kicked off her delicate white heels and gathered her dress in her hands. "Which hospital are they taking him to?" she asked Tommy urgently. Tommy looked confused. "I don't know. They were still on Oakwood Street when I left, trying to get him on the stretcher. But Marcus kept fighting them, saying he had to get here first." Sophia made a decision in that moment that felt more right than anything else had all day. She turned to Patricia, the venue coordinator, and spoke with absolute certainty. "Please tell the guests to stay. Serve them the cocktails and appetizers. Keep the musicians playing. This wedding is still happening today, just not in the way we originally planned." She looked at Rachel next. "Call every hospital in the area until you find which one they're taking Marcus to." Then arrange for transportation to bring him here directly from the hospital as soon as the doctors clear him. I don't care if he's in a wheelchair or a hospital bed or on crutches. If he wants to get married today, then we're getting married today." Rachel nodded, already dialing, her efficient nature kicking into high gear. Mrs. Chen started to protest, but Sophia cut her off with a look that brooked no argument. "Mom, the man I love just survived a car accident, and his first thought was making sure I knew he didn't abandon me. He sent a 7-year-old boy running through the streets to deliver a message rather than let me think for one more minute that he didn't want to marry me. If you can't see that that's the kind of man worth waiting for, then I don't know what else to tell you." Mrs. Chen's mouth closed, and to Sophia's surprise, her mother's eyes filled with tears. "You're right," Mrs. Chen said softly. "He's a good man. I'm sorry I didn't see it clearly before." Sophia turned her attention back to Tommy, who was standing awkwardly, clearly unsure what to do now that he had completed his mission. She knelt down again, taking both of his hands in hers. "Tommy, you did something incredibly brave today. Marcus asked you to do something important, and you did it perfectly. You ran all the way here to bring me this message, and because of you, I'm not standing here heartbroken thinking I was left at the altar. You gave me hope. Do you understand how important that is?" Tommy nodded, his chest puffing up with pride despite his obvious exhaustion. "Marcus said you were the most important person in the world to him, and that I had to make sure you knew he was coming. He said true love is worth running for." The simple wisdom of the statement, delivered by a child who probably didn't fully understand the weight of what he was saying, struck Sophia deeply. True love is worth running for. Marcus had understood that, and so had Tommy in his innocent way. "Would you like to stay for the wedding?" Sophia asked Tommy. "I think Marcus would want you here." "You're part of our story now." Tommy's eyes went wide. "Really, can I? But I'm all dirty and my mom doesn't know where I am. She's probably worried." Rachel, who was still on her phone coordinating logistics, overheard this and added another task to her mental list. "What's your mom's phone number, Tommy? I'll call her right now and explain everything. I'm sure she'll understand once she knows you're a hero." While Rachel spoke with Tommy's mother, Sophia stood and addressed the gathered guests. Many of them were people who had questioned Marcus's commitment, who had whispered doubts about their relationship, who had wondered if this wedding would actually happen. Now they were all watching with rapt attention, invested in the outcome of this dramatic turn of events. "Thank you all for your patience," Sophia began, her voice steady despite the emotions churning inside her. "Today didn't go as planned. Actually, that's an understatement. Today has been a disaster in many ways, but it's also revealed something beautiful. It's shown me exactly who Marcus is and how much our love means to him." She paused, gathering her thoughts. "When I imagined my wedding day, I pictured everything being perfect. The right flowers, the right music, the right lighting. I wanted everything to go smoothly, to be beautiful and memorable for all the right reasons. But life isn't perfect, and love isn't always convenient or easy. Sometimes love means fighting through obstacles to get where you need to be. Sometimes it means sending a little boy running through the streets with a message of hope. Sometimes it means showing up in a hospital gown with a broken leg, because the ceremony matters less than the commitment." Several guests were crying now, moved by the raw honesty of Sophia's words. She continued, feeling the truth of what she was saying settle into her bones. "So we're going to wait. We're going to have cocktails and appetizers and celebrate being together. And when Marcus gets here, however he arrives, we're going to have a wedding. It might be the most unusual wedding any of us have ever attended, but it will be ours. And it will be real. And it will be worth every minute of waiting." The guests erupted in applause, and the atmosphere in the venue shifted from awkward tension to warm anticipation. The musicians began playing more upbeat music. The caterers started circulating with trays of food and champagne, and people began to relax and mingle as if this had been the plan all along. Rachel returned with news 45 minutes later. She had found Marcus at City General Hospital, and he was indeed insisting on coming to the wedding immediately despite the doctor's recommendations that he stay overnight for observation. The broken leg had been set and casted, and while he had some bruising and minor cuts, there was nothing that would prevent him from leaving if he insisted, which he very much did. "They're loading him into a medical transport van right now," Rachel reported with a smile.
He'll be here in 20 minutes.
The paramedics agreed to bring him directly here before taking him back for proper admission later tonight. Apparently, Marcus was very persuasive, and the entire emergency room staff has been following this story.
They're all rooting for you two.
Sophia felt her heart soar. 20 minutes. In 20 minutes, she would see Marcus, would know for certain that he was okay, would be able to hold him and reassure herself that their future was still intact. She used the time to check on Tommy, who was now sitting at a table with a plate full of food, regaling a group of amused guests with the story of his heroic run through the neighborhood. Tommy's mother had arrived, a worried-looking woman who hugged her son tightly before thanking Sophia profusely for taking care of him.
He's always been the kind of kid who wants to help, Mrs. Wilson said with a mixture of pride and exasperation.
I'm just glad he was in the right place at the right time today. When the medical transport van finally pulled up to the entrance of the garden pavilion, every single guest moved to the windows to watch. The back doors opened, and there was Marcus, sitting in a wheelchair with his right leg extended in a fresh white cast, wearing a hospital gown over his dress pants and somehow still managing to look handsome despite the bandage on his forehead and the scrapes on his arms. Sophia ran to him, her dress trailing behind her like a comet's tail, and threw her arms around him as carefully as she could manage. Marcus held her tightly, his face buried in her hair, and she could feel him shaking with emotion.
I'm so sorry, Marcus whispered. I'm so sorry I was late. I'm sorry I scared you.
I'm sorry you had to wait and worry and think even for a moment that I didn't want this. Sophia pulled back just enough to look at his face, her hands cupping his cheeks gently.
You sent a 7-year-old boy running through the streets to tell me you love me.
You fought with paramedics to come here instead of going straight to a hospital bed. You're here now, broken leg and all, ready to marry me. Marcus, you have nothing to apologize for. You've just shown me more clearly than any perfect wedding ever could that you're exactly the man I thought you were. Marcus smiled, wincing slightly at the pain the expression caused his bruised face.
I wanted to carry you over the threshold after the ceremony.
I had this whole romantic plan. Now I can't even walk down the aisle without a wheelchair.
Then I'll walk beside your wheelchair, Sophia said simply.
Or better yet, I'll push it. Because that's what marriage is about, right? Being there for each other when things don't go according to plan. Supporting each other through the unexpected. Showing up even when it's hard. The wedding ceremony that followed was unlike any the guests had ever attended. Marcus remained in his wheelchair at the altar with Sophia standing beside him holding his hand. Tommy was given the honor of being the ring bearer, walking down the aisle with more pride than if he had been wearing a tuxedo instead of his grass-stained clothes. The minister, who had been waiting patiently through all the drama, adapted the ceremony beautifully to acknowledge what had happened.
We gather here today, he began, to witness a union that has already proven its strength before the vows were even spoken. We've seen today what it means when two people are truly committed to each other. We've seen sacrifice and determination and love that refuses to be stopped by mere circumstances. When it came time for the vows, Marcus and Sophia had decided to speak from the heart rather than use the traditional words they had rehearsed. Marcus went first, his voice strong despite his injuries. Sophia, 3 hours ago, when my car spun out of control and hit that pole, my first thought wasn't about the pain or the damage or whether I was seriously hurt. My first thought was that I couldn't let you stand in that wedding dress thinking I had chosen not to show up. The idea of you believing even for a moment that I didn't want to marry you was more unbearable than any physical injury. You are my person, Sophia Chen. You are the reason I want to wake up every morning and the last thought I have before I sleep. I promise to fight for us the way I fought to get here today. Every single day for the rest of our lives. There wasn't a dry eye in the venue as Sophia began her vows, her voice thick with emotion but clear and certain. Marcus, when Tommy burst through those doors holding your phone, I realized something important. I realized that the trappings of a perfect wedding, the flowers and the music and the carefully timed schedule, none of that matters compared to this, compared to us, compared to a love that survives car accidents and broken legs and every obstacle that tries to keep us apart. I promise to push your wheelchair when you can't walk,
to be your strength when you're weak, and to remember always that real love isn't about perfect moments. It's about perfect commitment. When the minister pronounced them husband and wife, Marcus pulled Sophia down for a kiss that was both tender and passionate, and the entire venue erupted in cheers and applause. Tommy stood in the front row clapping louder than anyone, his face beaming with the pride of someone who knows they played a crucial part in something important. The reception that followed was joyful and chaotic and absolutely perfect in its imperfection. Marcus gave a speech from his wheelchair, thanking everyone for waiting and especially thanking Tommy for being the hero of the day. He announced that he and Sophia were establishing a scholarship fund in Tommy's name for children who showed exceptional courage and kindness in their communities. As the evening wound down and the last guests departed, Sophia sat on Marcus's lap in his wheelchair, careful of his injured leg, watching the venue staff clean up the remnants of their unusual wedding day. "So this wasn't exactly what we planned," Marcus said, wrapping his arms around his new wife's waist. Sophia laughed, a sound full of joy and relief and love. "No, it definitely wasn't, but somehow it was better. It was real and honest, and it showed everyone what we really are. A team that doesn't give up, no matter what." "I love you, Mrs. Marcus Chen," Marcus whispered, using her new name for the first time. "I love you too," Sophia replied. Broken leg and all. Outside the garden pavilion, the sun had set completely, but inside, the last candles still flickered, casting warm light on a couple who had learned that the best love stories aren't the ones that go according to plan. They're the ones where love finds a way despite every obstacle, where a little boy becomes a hero, and where two people choose each other over and over again, no matter what circumstances try to keep them apart. And somewhere across town, young Tommy Wilson fell asleep that night with a smile on his face, knowing that he had helped create a happy ending, and that sometimes the most important thing you can do is run as fast as you can to deliver a message of hope to someone who needs it most.